Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this episode of the What's Halperning podcast. Today, I am super thrilled to welcome Kevin Kauffman. Kevin and I have become friends over the last 2 or 3 years, maybe a little longer.
What year is this?
2022.
So it's only been just like 2.5 years. It just feels like a decade.
It feels like a long time. So yeah, Kevin and I met literally on stage at an event where we were speaking as panelists in front of lenders, and there were like answers that both of us gave them. We're like, I like that guy, and so literally we from there have become friends. And Kevin is a husband and a dad, and runs a business. He runs an EXP team, a big team. But where we connect is that crossover of business and entrepreneurialism, and like personal development and like journey. Kevin is a journeyer. You're always on to something, dude, and I love it. It's every time we get together, every time we speak, I learn something. I've taken what we have talked about and applied it in my life, and being exposed to some of the stuff that you have invited me to. Work-related events, other stuff, the people that I've been exposed to, the discussions, I'm always coming away with stuff, man. So thank you for welcoming me into your world. And thanks for being a friend, and thanks for joining us today on the podcast.
Yeah, dude, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. It's funny. I was thinking about that today too. It was like January of 2020. But then, because I remember the first time you and I went and actually grabbed a drink. It was literally right before the world shut down, like a week or two before.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And so we've already lived through a pandemic. So our friendship feels like it's a couple decades old. It's really only, 2.5 years old since we met though.
That's crazy, man.
It's been a lot.
God, it's nuts. It's time flies. And yeah, you look back, I think pandemic time was like dog years.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt.
It's like, a year of pandemic time was like 5 years.
In real life.
You didn't have much to do, like sitting at home doing stuff. And, someone told me today about a comedian that shot during lockdown, shot a bunch of content. It's on Netflix, something Joe Burr or something like that. Anyways, but he was like, dude, following him through his pandemic journey on Netflix, he's like, it almost hit too close to home. Like you can see him losing his mind as he's putting the content together. So,
yeah, I might skip that one.
Yeah, I know. He's all, you should really watch it. And I'm like, I don't think so.
I'm going to stick to Lincoln Lawyer or whatever I'm watching right now.
Yeah, totally. Exactly. Yeah. Just keep it simple. Just
Yeah.
entertain me. Don't, whatever. So what's the latest? Like some of the personal development journeys that you've been through that I've experienced, like, intermittent fasting was one that we talked about quite a bit. And then now you're doing cold plunge and sauna. Are you still on that?
Oh, dude. Oh, yeah.
Tell me about it, man.
So what's funny is if you go back to, right around the time we met, I had done this exercise. So my buddy Frank Klesitz, I don't know if you know Frank, but he owns a company called Viral Marketing. So it's a real estate marketing company, right? So we were talking one day in his office when he was in San Diego a couple years ago, and he had this thing he calls it's like an exercise. I forget exactly, like your towards values is what he calls it. And it's effectively like, it's walking people through a series of questions to find out about what they value the most, both in work and in life. And there's a little bit of like goal setting stuff to it, right? And so what I was going to do is I've got this Facebook group, like 25 or so thousand real estate agents are in this Facebook group. And one of the things I was going to do is effectively offer up a call like that for free to anybody in the group that wanted it, just because it's a valuable exercise. Mm-hmm. So he said, you should probably do one first yourself if you're going to go do that. I was like, oh yeah. So I did. So he had one of his guys that had worked for him for a number of years do that with me. And so we go through it, and he walks me through the exercise, and I'll jump to the punchline. The punchline is at the very top. There's like this part that's like a 5-year vision. And part of that for me, first of all, it was pretty amazing because, again, we did this in February of 2020. Part of that for me was like, cold plunge and sauna at home every day before I ever leave, in addition to a few other things like taking my kids to school every day, just certain things I do at home from a lifestyle perspective was on that. And so I did it February of 2020, and I just kind of forgot about it. Like he sent me the document, but I kind of forgot about it because the world, as we know, the world shut down a couple weeks later. And late last year, something triggered a memory. And so I went and looked for that document, and I read it, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm actually doing this. And so I had already accomplished everything on that 5-year vision except for the cold plunge and the sauna, which I was literally only waiting for because I was waiting to do like a remodel. I had to lay like a cement thing.
Right.
All that to say, like, this is one of those things where, like, for me, there's an author, his name's Ramit Sethi, and he has this thing called Your Rich Life. Like, what's for you? What's something you would basically spend a lot of money on? That doesn't mean you're balling out, but
Right.
but it's an indulgence for you because it means something to you. That was it for me. That was actually the trigger. And so I realized, like, I just need to complete this. I'm actually just waiting on someone else to do something. So I did it. So, I mean, that is part of it every day. Like, that has been the sauna. I've always thought in my life since I was like a kid, since the first time I ever did a sauna, was like, that must be like the ultimate luxury to be able to do that at home.
Right.
And then about 10 or 12 years ago, I was at the Wynn in Las Vegas, and they're showing us around like the spa, and they're like, there's a hot tub right next to it's cold. I was like, what do you mean cold? What's that? And they told me, and I was like, oh. So I tried it. I was like, well, that's cool. And then it'd be like, it's become such a trend in the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
So luckily now people manufacture them, because I thought I was gonna have to like dig a pool, and not a pool, but like a mini pool and stuff to ever have that in my home. And now you can just like buy them for not a ton of money, and it's awesome.
Dude, that's so what's the alternating, what is the general idea with cold plunge and sauna? What in the alteration thereof, and what does it do physiologically? What's the goal?
So I'll start with the reason I do it, right? And then there's a ton of other benefits that are associated with it. For me, the sauna is all about relaxation, kind of like shutting off for a little bit, literally just relaxation. For some reason, I've always liked that. There are a ton of health benefits, like a ton of cardio, respiratory, and like heart benefits, and amongst other things that comes along with sauna. However, for me, the main thing is about just relaxing.
Right.
I'm kind of wound tight. And so for me, that's one way I can relax. The cold is a couple things. Number one, it's like a mental challenge for me.
Mind over matter.
As you and I talked about when we started talking about like the whole fasting thing for 24 hours, that was all about a mental challenge for me. That wasn't necessarily about fasting in and of itself. That was about doing something that I thought was mentally hard. The benefit I didn't realize that came along with that is, dude, it's hard to every single day to know that temperature is like 40 degrees and I got to go put my toe, like the first 10 seconds is hard no matter what.
Right.
Yeah, I've done it every day now for the last 2 months. It's just as hard. It was just as hard this morning as it was the day I did it on like April 1st, right? No exaggeration. And so there's the mental challenge of, I'm going to make myself do something that's hard. And then there's the other piece of it, which I didn't know, which is I'm not capable of doing anything else other than focusing on my breath when I'm in the water. Otherwise, I think about how cold it is. And so I've just got this method that I don't want to say I developed it. I don't know. I just picked it up from somewhere, I'm sure, which is I count my breath 6 seconds in through my nose, 6 seconds out through my nose. And I do that in my head. And then I use my fingers to count how many times I've done that. That's all. Like, I'm a mental, like, small person. Like, that is about as far as I can go. So I literally can't think about anything else other than that. Now, that said, you get out, dude. There's a rush of norepinephrine, and like you feel like ready to run through the wall. The way I describe it to people is, if you're the type of person that goes, I want some coffee, because you get that feeling from it, that you wouldn't need coffee if you just did that. I happen to like coffee, so I'll drink it all day.
You'll do both, right?
But it's great to have. I like the taste of coffee along with the actual feeling of like, I could run through a wall now. Yeah,
dude, that's crazy. I mean, it's funny because that alternating hot and cold, I think, one, for the mental challenge, two, physiologically there's benefit. But what you said for both of those is it's the mental challenge, right? And it's and being able to unwind and relax, and then the mental challenge of the cold. It's so funny because every time we get together, it's like, dude, what are you up to? Like, I know you've got something. I know, like, and what's so cool about, getting to know you is you surround yourself by people who are in that space. Like, what are you doing? What do you got? What are you reading? What are you doing? What are you thinking? And you guys exchange so much information and so much like good, like, hey, this is something that has positively impacted my life. Take it or leave it.
Yep.
And more often than not, especially, the tight group of people that I've been exposed to that you interact with, I mean, it is just like a constant exchange, man. It's so cool.
Dude, it has to be, because what I found is I don't want to be around people that don't want to get better. I'm not saying like you always have to be striving for something. I'm not like the 75. I'm not making fun of 75 hard, but like I'm not the 75 hard guy. I am like, and I've done some hard things in life, but the thing is, I want to always, there's a couple things I value. Number one is I want to improve myself. And I feel strongly that if I don't hang out with people like you, or like my buddy Dustin, who you've met a couple times, my business partner Fred, and so many other people, then I'm not fulfilled, and I know I'm not going to be the best me that I can be, right? The other part of that, though, and I hadn't thought about this till recently, is for some reason I've always really valued the viewpoints of people that are extremely different than I am.
Right.
So I remembered, even long before I knew this, like go back to high school, I realized that I was the guy that was friends with all the different types of cliques and friend groups in high school. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it didn't matter. I was pretty much friends with all of them. And whereas a lot of people sort of didn't cross-pollinate in high school. So I realized, even going back to high school, I've always valued learning from and being around people that do things different, see things different. And what I know is I can pick up a little bit from here and a little bit from there. And, you know, she's doing things this way. This guy's got this thing not dialed. And I can take what I want and leave what I don't.
Right.
And try to have a better life.
Right. Well, and then take what you want, leave what you don't. And then sometimes what you left, you end up wanting again.
Yeah.
Sometimes what you're doing is not working. Like, you know, that constant, you know, I think having that growth mindset, so to speak, right? To kind of like, and you know, not necessarily like growing your wealth and being the, you know, the best thing, the best agent, or running the biggest team. It's simply like, what's around the next corner?
Yeah.
What else can I see? And like encapsulating that and applying it, and then taking it into an entrepreneurial mindset, like, you know, allowing yourself the grace of being able to pivot, I think is one of the things that people don't understand and grasp. But like when you've got this basket full of like all these things that you've tried or could potentially try, and in our business and real estate, you know, things are moving all the time. And if you are stuck in your way, in your lane, that lane is going to close off to you. You have to be able to pivot and move. And having the exposure that you have to so many people and so many ideas, like I suspect, I don't know your business that well, but I suspect that you and Fred are able to like, hey, that's a thing that we should be doing. Let's do it. And you just go, because you're like programmed to do that in your personal life.
Yeah. You said something too a few minutes ago about like, I decide I don't want this, but then later on I do. It's also something I really value, which is changing my mind. And I see a lot of strength, not in wavering, but in actually going, you know what? I now have a different opinion because of XYZ, because of my viewpoint, or maybe just the way things happen to be in your life or in your business. But I strongly value changing my mind, and I appreciate other people that can change their mind, as opposed to just digging into doing what they're doing because they made a decision at a certain point to do it, right? Like maybe this is the way to run my business, or this is the way food, right?
Right.
Like, well, I've always done it this way. So like, I'm just going to dig in more because I identify as keto or vegetarian or whatever, as opposed to, well, hold on a second, there's something new. I've learned something new. If I have new information, more information, it's not bad to change your mind. I think it's a sign of strength. And so always trying to be open to make sure I'm not holding on to an idea that might've been the right idea 5 years ago that isn't the right idea today.
Right. Well, it's so funny because people, to your point, they start identifying with concepts.
Oh,
right.
yeah.
This is who I am. This is what I do. I don't need any more.
Biggest problem in our country today.
Well, in politics, you name it.
Yeah.
And then people, you know, it's funny because you brought up Dustin. I brought up Dustin to Danny, who's filming the podcast earlier. And one of the things that he said, it's along those lines. So, you know, when we were up at your event in Salt Lake, he said something that changed my life. And it's the idea of, we all have something that we allow to like hang around our necks and drag us down, right?
Yeah.
And so what is that, right? And is that a concept and an idea that you've just become so ingrained with that you're actually allowing it to hold you back? And for me, when he said that, you know, I was like, what? I was like, absolutely. I've been going through this journey. You know, it's like my wife and I collectively have lost a bunch of weight, right? That was a big piece of the pie puzzle. You know, let's get our physical bodies in a better place. But first we had to get our mental self in a better place. And then the weight just kind of started falling off. But then like that last big piece of the pie was finance, like running our personal finances, running the business finances. Like we hadn't grasped that yet. And I was out earning my stupidity, right? I was just barely ahead of it. I was on the wheel, and I couldn't figure out. I was going to CPAs. Hey, can you help me? Like, I need to get my shit together here. I was going to financial advisors. Can you help me? I was going all over, and no one was able to provide me with the help that we needed. Like, I need insight into, I don't need I tried the softwares. I tried, budgeting softwares, and it just wasn't working. And when Dustin said that, when he said we all have something that we allow ourselves to like hang around our neck and hold us back, I was like, boom, finance. It was like a lightning bolt right into my brain. And that night in my hotel, I'm like, there have to be like financial coaches. So I was Googling financial coaches. I'm up in Salt Lake, and I'm, moved Google down to Phoenix, and I'm Googling financial coaches. And I came across one. It's Fiscal Fitness. And their website reminded me of my website. The way they put themselves out there reminded me of the way I did. And I was like, I'm right now filled out a contact form. And just the concept of we allow this to hang around our own necks and breaking free of it was huge and moved my life forward in a way that I haven't been able to move forward in years.
What I think, the lesson I think that I would love for the listeners or viewers to get there, not necessarily okay, you had that moment. What I think though allowed that was that you got up and left your natural everyday, and like you didn't come here that day.
Right.
You got up, you got on an airplane, you did something kind of inconvenient, and you went and you sat in a room with people. You trusted me, first of all, to say, hey, I'm going to have some smart friends in this room. I think you should be here too. And we're just going to see what happens. You put yourself in a position to learn something new. And I think that's so valuable. My business partner and I have talked about this for almost since the very beginning of our business. There's so much value in just getting up and going. And it's the reason why we go to events. And I have other real estate agents who will like, why are you going to this? Or why are you going to that? I'm like, man, sometimes I don't know, because what I'm doing is I'm being open to an opportunity like that, because sometimes, dude, it happens on the airplane on the ride there. Like I've got my money's worth already for this trip.
Right.
Sometimes it's a little bit deeper, like it's not spoon fed. Right.
Right.
But the thing is, I know that if I don't break up my normal everyday patterns, then I'm not really going to be open to hearing that. Right. Dustin said something that day. You were open enough, and he happened to say the thing, and you connected to it, and it hit you right away. And because you're a guy that takes action, that could change the rest of your life and the future of your family.
Right.
That doesn't happen though if you don't get up and go. Or maybe it happens, but maybe it doesn't happen until disaster.
Right.
Because that's the other thing that gets people open to change, is like they're at rock bottom.
Right.
Financially, physically, mentally, whatever.
Yep.
Whereas like if you just make it a regular practice of getting up and doing something different, man, you'd be surprised at how far forward you can move in such a short period of time.
It's amazing. I mean, and to your point, being open to taking action. Like, okay, I don't know what this, like when you texted me, hey dude, we're going up to Salt Lake, we're having a thing, it would be a bunch of smart people, I think you should go. I was just like, in.
You dude, I know.
Dude,
I was surprised.
Like 8 seconds later.
I was texting you and I was like, I probably should have called him to tell him, because most people look at me like I got 3 eyes when I explained to them what we're doing. And you were like, in. I was like, I knew he was my guy.
Yeah, dude.
I knew he was my guy. Like, because you just said yes right away.
Right away.
And I was like, if you texted me like that, I'd be like, look at my calendar. Probably do the same thing you did, which is I'd look at my calendar and be like, I'm in.
Right.
Yeah.
Dude, Kevin says this is going to be good. It's going to be good.
Yeah.
Let's go. And like, it ended up being literally a life-changing event.
Yeah.
And and I think to your point, man, people get so dug in the routine. They build these walls of comfort around themselves, like, hey, yeah, this my office building can be a really comfortable space where I don't get out and break up my own monotony. But sometimes forcing yourself out, you never know what you're going to open yourself up to. And then surrounding yourself with like-minded people that you're going to learn something from. I don't know how it's going to come. I don't know where. Like, is it going to be at happy hour with you? Is it going to be at lunch with you and Fred and Dustin? Is it going to be in Salt Lake? Like, where's it going to come? I don't know. I don't care, but let's go.
Let's just be open to it.
Yeah.
Though. Yeah. That's so valuable to me.
Well, dude, and you, I mean, how long have you been in the real estate business?
Dude, today or tomorrow marks 15 years.
No way.
The day. Yeah.
Congratulations. Thanks
Yeah.
for spending your anniversary here.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But okay, so 15 years in the biz, you've worked diligently. You've seen highs and lows, but what you've always done is expose yourself to high level people.
Yeah.
And with high levels of thought, and all of those people being open to the inner exchange of ideas. And I think for me, that was one of the reasons why I moved to North & Co, is because I saw that. I didn't know exactly, kind of same thing. It's like, Salt Lake, I'm in. North & Co, once I talked to Brian and got my legs under me, I was like, I don't know exactly what it's going to be, but I know I got to go.
Yeah.
And that open exchange of ideas and that interplay of best in breed, both in and out of the business, right? I mean, I've got friends that have nothing to do with real estate, but I know when I go sit down with them, like, here we go.
You're going to learn something.
You're going to learn something.
Heck yeah. I value that. Early in our career, we were let in to a conversation with people that were doing significantly more business than we were at the time. And I just there was something about that I realized, like, I don't want to ever leave this room, and I don't ever want to not be around people like this, even though there's so much of what they're talking about. Like at that time, it was like so much REO business,
right?
And we were doing short sales. Like I was never going into REO, but to hearing these people's perspective, these people that at the time were selling 2, 3, 4 times the amount of real estate I was selling, I knew I was learning a lot. And I just valued that from the very beginning of like, I got to always make sure I'm in rooms where, I'm definitely not the smartest. I don't want to be the smartest guy in the room ever.
Right. Yeah. You want to be learning, but that's what's cool, man. Like, you'll be up in the front of the room, and let's take that panel that we were on. You're up in the front of the room, and I see you like looking at me with one of my answers.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, cool. Like you're up there speaking to a room of lenders about how they can treat and engage agents more. But there's another agent that you never met, and you're like, okay, I'm picking up on stuff. I'm picking up on stuff that you're putting out. You never know where you're going to get it or how it's going to come, but being open to it. And I think, to your point earlier, people are so closed down to new data and new inputs. They're so ingrained with the comfort of going back to their same slop trop of information.
Yeah.
The same talking heads, the same people just spoon feeding the same nonsense that's dividing them, and them saying, well, this is just what I believe, and I'm just going to believe it until I die. Like, there's no growth in that. To your point, it does take strength to be like, I did believe that for a long, long time.
And now I don't.
And now I don't. But like, if you can't learn and change and adjust, then at what point does your train get on the tracks and just never deviate? Like, how boring is that?
There's 2 quotes that always come to mind. Number one was, it's funny because one was from a rapper, one was from a pastor. And I'll share the pastor quote first, which was, he says, so perceptions are formed with an ounce of information, changed only with a ton of information. It's like, that's so true. And there's this rapper NF, and it's a line in a song where he says, don't believe what you believe just because that's how they raised you. And for me, those are the same things of like, you know what? 2 things can be true at once. I did this. I aligned with this company or this party or fill in the blank, and it was the best thing for me then. And it also might not be the best thing for me right now. Like, both of those things can be true simultaneously. But to your point, I think what we do, and again, I think this is the biggest problem, is we're so worried about our identities. And for me, I think that's actually one of the bigger problems in the world. I think we should be trying to de-identify. I'm not sure if that's the right word. I'm definitely not a scholar. Definitely not an English major, but like de-identify, right? And identify with, I find myself going, I want to identify as less and less, I mean, look, I'm wearing a Dodger hat. I love the Dodgers. I'm not afraid to admit it. That's probably one identity I'm probably not getting rid of anytime soon.
Because you don't want to.
I don't want to, right? It serves me well most of the time. But the thing is, like, how many things do we go, well, I'm a fill in the blank, Democrat, I'm a Republican, I'm a libertarian, I'm a vegan, I'm a paleo, I'm a, CrossFit bro, whatever.
Right.
Because I identify that, it means I now instantly have to, everything I say and do, once I've said that, it's going to be about protecting that identity. So you could creep into my space with an idea that's actually pretty good, something I might like better, but because it goes against this identity, I can't even see it.
Right.
And what's worse is I can't even see it. It's not that I don't want to see it. It's that I can't even see it because I'm so damn focused on whatever it is I identify as. And some of the worst things are Republican and Democrat
Right.
to identify as, because it completely shuts you off to seeing somebody else's point of view.
Yep.
And not to just make fun of Democrats and Republicans. That's just the easy one right now
Right.
with the state of affairs, right? But so many things, if you look, it can be broken into Democrat, Republican. And I'm like, what if you just identified as a human being,
Right.
and you made only decisions based on being a human being and other human beings being affected by your decisions?
Right.
What if we just started from there and not so much, I'm what it fill in the blank.
Right. Well, what's super interesting about that, and it brings the book The Power of Now to mind with Eckhart Tolle, where he basically says that the ego builds those identities.
Yeah.
The ego is building that to make itself important and to give itself somewhere to live. And so if you tell your ego, like, no, man, I'm not a Democrat. No, I'm not a Republican. No, I'm not just a CrossFit bro. No, I'm not just a vegan. No, I just don't only run marathons. No, I'm just not on keto. Like whatever those hardcore things that you believe identify who you are, if you break those down, now you're able to do the stuff like you're talking about, like, I've just changed my mind.
Yeah.
Like that idea makes sense for me and I'm going to go apply it. The other thing that popped in my head there is, when you build those constructs and it's like, no, I am this. This is exactly who I am. Or if someone comes and tries to tell you something, to your point, where it's like, no, that's getting in my way. Or like, people asking you for your opinion. Well, what do you think about Ukraine? What do you think about da-da-da? Like, don't you know that the world is on fire? Don't you know? Like, well, Marcus Aurelius said, we always reserve the right to not have an opinion.
Oh, yes.
And that is one of the most powerful things to me personally, professionally, in my life. Like, there's too much damn information coming at us.
Dude, that's one thing. That quote, I didn't realize it was Marcus Aurelius, but I've seen that. And I've actually repeated that to myself a few times in the last year. Where I'm like, actually, you don't have to have an opinion on this. It's okay. And because there's a lot of things, like you just gave an example of one, like I'm not qualified to have an opinion on it.
I have no idea.
I really don't.
Right. I'm just seeing the news. I don't know which propaganda I'm eating right now, but someone is feeding me this propaganda.
Yes. Yeah.
So I don't think, to your point, I don't have enough information. I'm not a Russo-Ukrainian, expert.
And that's not me saying that's not important.
Right. Or obviously, I don't care.
Yeah,
it just means like.
Exactly. I don't want anybody to be bombed. I don't want there to be war. And I'm also not going to go support Ukraine or Russia or whoever blindly just because like my political affiliation or my community's affiliation says to do this. I don't know. I think it's bad no matter what. But I don't know who I'm supporting, so I'm reserving my right to not
have an opinion.
Yeah.
Right. And there's so many bombs that are thrown in front of us in society right now with the speed of news, the interconnectedness of the planet. You to form an opinion on everything and to be asked to emotionally engage in everything is an impossibility.
It's terrible.
It's so much stress, and I find this from friends, from family, from people I interact with, from clients. So much stress in their lives is derived from consuming that information and that news. Like, dude, you're allowing yourself to get totally off balance about something you have zero control about.
There's an entrepreneur by the name of Andrew Wilkinson. I don't know if you ever heard of him, but if you ever get the chance to hear him on a podcast, he's one of the most brilliant people I've ever heard, business minds. And he was being interviewed on this podcast I just listened to yesterday. I'd heard him tell a story before, but in less depth, where he effectively went on a like total media fast. I mean, like screen fast, no phones, no computers, no TV, not like kids and family and books. And that was it.
Yeah.
For, I think it was like 45 days. And he started talking about, and then cause he's really intellectual, he then started going into like, hold on a second, why did it work this way? Or why am I now behaving this way? And so when you realize like all those things that are coming at you, I mean, dude, it's a full-time job to just not to care about all the stuff that we're told we should care about.
Right.
Like it really is like, and so, which is again, I think going back to why I've continued to go, I don't have to have an opinion on this.
Right. Yeah. You don't have to, you don't have to engage. I mean, it's easy to get sucked into it, but to your point, like the screen, 45-day fast, Do you know who Darren Hardy is?
Yeah, of course.
Okay,
yeah.
so like I did Insane Productivity, one of his courses, and he was talking about how he essentially is completely disengaged from the news. And he's like, it doesn't affect my life at all. He goes, listen, if there's something that is definitely like, hey, dude, there's a food shortage, or in my case, there's a formula shortage for my baby, I know about it. And I know about it because I walk into Walgreens and there's not formula. So then it's like, what's going on? And then I engage and figure it out, But he's like, and this guy Darren Hardy engages with corporate titans all over the world. And he's like, I've never once walked in and someone been like, did you see the thing on the news? And him go, no, I don't watch the news. And then be like, oh, well, it's dramatically going to affect your life. He's like, it doesn't. It literally doesn't affect him to not know. And it also allows him to mentally project what he wants to project into the world.
He doesn't have to take it on. I learned it from Tim Ferriss in the 4-Hour Workweek. And so he's got this couple formulas in that book. And one of those, I'll never forget, it's like E. The chapter is called E. E is for elimination. And one of those is news. And he's the same thing. He almost just, if you go read that chapter of the book or even the first page of that chapter, you would hear the same story from him that he wrote in 2007 that you learned from Darren Hardy. And it's true. And that was, I think I read the book in 08 or 09. I forget which year. That said, from that point on, I was like, yeah, you know what? I think I've probably watched the news, like actual news on TV, twice since then. And it was more of like, I just want to get up and I'm like with a family member or something. And I was thinking, oh man, this is so terrible.
Right?
This is so terrible. Like, I'm so glad I do not consume this every day because it's just an attack on, it's an attack on people, first of all, but it's these companies that are trying to force us to think a certain way.
Yep.
That we shouldn't even, about shit we shouldn't be thinking about.
Right.
Now, like you mentioned the baby, that's a real thing in your real life. Whatever CNN or Fox News' take on that has nothing to do with you making sure your baby has the formula that is needed.
Right.
It really doesn't.
Right.
And so screw that. Like, go take care of real life.
Right.
Like all this other, it's just noise. And it's so unproductive.
It's so unproductive and it's so mentally taxing and draining. And what's funny is before Insane Productivity, and he challenges you through that course to like reduce your screen time. One of the hacks is don't take your phone into the bathroom.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, because you go in and all of a sudden you're on news and Twitter and whatever, and you just get derailed. And so, but the other thing is just kind of building that wall. I mean, before that concept of like not allowing the news into my world, I'd wake up and I'd roll over and the first thing I do is grab my phone and I pull open the news. I pull open the Wall Street Journal. I'd read through stuff. I'd see what was going on. And then I would get out of bed and my mindset for the day would be made by external factors that literally have no direct impact on my day that day.
Yeah.
And so my mind would be made up about how I was going to approach the day. And so now my alarm goes off and I turn it off and I go outside and I get going with my daily routine, which is yoga. Now I've added resistance training, and then I grab a cup of coffee when I'm done. I drink coffee, I read a book, and then when the book's done or when my coffee's done, I close the book and I go in and I get ready for the day. But then I open my laptop and to get going with work after I've showered and sit down and eat breakfast with my wife and my 3-year-old, and open my laptop and these 6 tabs open, and it's all business related. None of it news.
Yeah.
None of it outside. I don't look at my phone. I don't look at the text messages. I don't look at the missed calls until I have gotten as much proactive work done as I can. And then I'll start letting in the phone. I'll let in the text. I'll let in the call. But I still don't let the news in. Dude, I might as well delete the news apps from my phone.
Yeah, protect. You have to protect that. You have to protect that for yourself. I've got a friend, might be a strong word, although we're friendly, guy he's a brilliant author. He wrote, one of the books that he wrote is called Willpower Doesn't Work. His name's Benjamin Hardy. He wrote Willpower Doesn't Work. And part of that, the central theme of that is effectively setting up, I would call it a hack. Like your 6 tabs that open, none of them are like to a news or to a social media. Like, it's about setting things up in your life to make it easier for you to not see the news, to not see the thing that's going to trigger you, to not pay attention to the thing that you can't actually control or that doesn't matter until later in the day. I had a good friend who he owns a brokerage in Portland. His name's Craig Rieger. And Craig was teaching a class one time at a brokerage I used to own. This is, 2014 or 13. 2014. September 30th, 2014. I'll never forget that day. And he said, one of the things that he said is like, and we were talking about in the context of like generating business for our real estate business. But part of the thing he was like, dude, the world will wait for you. Like, it's okay to not check email till 11 o'clock
right.
or 11:30, whatever time we talked about. Right. He's like, it will wait. All the problems will still be there. And I was like, it really can. I was the guy who from the first day I got into real estate would tell people around me, my staff, et cetera, like there's no such thing as emergency in real estate. Here's my hours. This is when I work. This is when I don't work. There's no such thing as an emergency. If you have an emergency, I'm not qualified to help you anyways. And so I realized like I had to do that with my day too. And the truth is the world will conform to whatever rules you give it. So if you don't check your email till after yoga and coffee and working out and reading and doing what you have to do to generate your business or whatever that first part of your day routine looks like, the world will actually wait for you. Like 99.5% of the time, the world will wait for you. And occasionally like something bad happens and something comes up and it's truly an emergency. That's called life. But the actual percentage of the time that happens really isn't that much. Dude, so you might as well just do what you need to do and quit using the rest of the shit as like a distraction for doing what we have to do.
Well, and that's it. It is a distraction. Dude, and to your point, it's funny because when I think back, so let's call it 2.5 years that I've been, device silent in the morning. When I get to the office, I'm working from home. I'm proactively working on my business from, let's call it 8:15 or so until 10 or 10:30 when I get in the office. Then I open up my emails and the world waited.
It did.
But to your point, the 99.9%, just thinking back, like, okay, 365 days in a year, yeah, I've probably had like 2 or 3 situations where in the morning it's like, and that'll be like JC calling me, hi, did you see that email? You really need to respond to that like now. Or so-and-so's been trying to get in touch with you. You probably should call them. Like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
But the rest of the time, this is my time. This is my time to, as an entrepreneur, as a real estate practitioner, as a dad, as a husband, as a human being, to carve out just a little niche of time for me, for my physical body, for my mental well-being, to set my mind right so that I can approach the day in a way that is going to be most effective to move my life forward. And when my life is moving forward, my family's is. And when my life and my family's life is moving forward, my clients' lives are moving forward. The sphere around me is moving forward as we bend the future in front of us to meet what we really want to do, as opposed to allowing all that input to come in and just tell us the way we're supposed to feel, tell us the way we're supposed to react and respond.
One of my first mentors, probably my first mentor, wrote a couple books, and I'm gonna butcher this a little bit. I think it was in If How-Tos Were Enough, We Would All Be Skinny, Rich, and Happy by Brian Clemmer. But he talks about the concept, and I'm sure you've heard this in a different setup before, the concept if you take an egg, a carrot, or coffee grounds, and you put all of those things in hot water. So they all respond different. The carrot gets soft and is mush, can't do anything. The egg gets hard and doesn't let anything in. And the coffee grounds like overtake the water, and the water like it now overtakes the coffee is like it's now become coffee. Mm-hmm. So which one are you going to be? When things get hard, when the water gets hot, so to speak, in our lives, are you going to be the one that goes and hides? Or are you going to be the one that gets hardened and goes like, you don't let anybody in? Or are you going to change the environment and control what you can control, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, we all have those choices. And the more we let other crap in, the more we end up being like the egg or like the carrot. And it's such a hard thing to do. Like everything I've said today that sounded even halfway smart as all shit, I'm trying to work on every day too. And I definitely don't hit the mark every day. But it's like, well, I want to be the coffee. Like I want to change the environment when I walk in a room. I don't want to be changed by it.
Right. Well, and that's such a good point because if you allow your environment to tell you the way it's going to be, then as you said, you've got choices in how you're going to respond. If you allow the environment and the information coming to you to decide for you, you have no choice.
Yeah, exactly.
You've given up your sovereignty and your ability to choose. Now you still ultimately have it. You can turn the TV off. You can decide one day, I am not going to open my phone this morning. I'm not going to look at social media and compare myself to other people this morning. I'm not going to open up the news and see that 10,000 people died somewhere in a mudslide in a place that's never going to affect me. I'm not going to turn on the news and see what the politicians are yelling at each other about, dividing us about. I'm not going to let that stuff in. When you choose to command your own life and your own day, you literally get to choose your destiny, and things get way simpler, man. Like, I don't know if you're this way. It's like, and one of my mentors, my mental coach, Al Fuentes, I think we talked about that before. I get restless. Shocked, right, dude? Like, you're a guy that gets restless and wants to change things up and whatever. And I go through these phases where it's like, what am I doing? Like, am I involved in the community enough? Am I doing things? Should I sit on a board? Should I da 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 da? And you know, I was getting restless one time, and he's like, hold up, dude. He's like, how's this? How's this? Like, have you perfected yourself? And I'm like, no. And he's like, okay, so until you really get things dialed in, keep working on yourself. All the energy you want to push out there, pull it back in.
Yeah.
What can you do to keep improving? And like, keep your sphere tight. He's like, how's your inner ring? And I'm like, really good. Like, my family, my work family, really good. He's like, okay, so why do you want to go break it? Keep that energy right in here. Keep it going. Keep turning it back in instead of wanting to project out and push out.
Yeah.
And people, you know, people want to go down, and I helping people and whatever, we do it all the time. In our business, we do it. You know, having conversations with people, we do it. We exchange. I learn from people, they learn from me, and we help. You know, we help each other, but you don't have to like proactively just go out and just start putting Band-Aids on other things. It's like, man, turn it in. Put that medicine on yourself.
Well, my buddy Ben taught it to me like this. He said, I'll never forget the day he sent me this, and I was so pissed because I was sharing with him something I was so frustrated with, and it's a personal issue. And he sent me this text right after we hung up the phone, and it was like, we often just complicate things to justify inaction. And I'm like, that's what we do, right? We complicate things, like, meaning I'm gonna go work on the things outside of me. Like the example you just gave was like my community or this thing or, you know, this board or that board, rather than like, well, hold on. The simple action here is like, I should just keep working here, right?
Right.
I should keep this thing going the way more in the direction I want it, right? But it's so easy to think outwardly than to think inwardly, like Al mentioned. So,
yeah. It's way easier to, and it's what we're programmed to do.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that we've both mentioned, mentors and mentorship, and I especially with young agents, I tell everyone that's considering even getting into real estate or struggling or whatever, I'm like, you got to find a mentor.
Yeah.
And mentors are hard to find because typically the people that you want to be mentored by are their days are full.
They're busy.
And, you know, without a financial incentive for them to help you, it's tough to pull them away. And if the only reason they're helping you is financial, then they're not necessarily being a mentor. It's a business partnership. So like, how do you find mentors? How have you found mentors in your life?
I don't know if I'm right. I think that mentors want to be mentors, and the best way to have one is to be a good mentee. And what I mean by that, an easy example as a real estate agent is when I hire a real estate agent to my team, everyone starts at zero, right? Nobody's born with stuff in escrow, right? So we all start at zero. The agent that wants my time and just is going to ask question after question after question, but isn't going to do the things that I've already taught them to do, like, that's not a good mentee. Now, the agent that has done everything I've told them to do and is going, hey, how do I get better at this? Or what do I do more of? Like, I want to make sure I spend as much time with that person. And so I think of myself that way. Like, am I being a question asker right now, or am I being a good mentee? And am I going? And so part of that is like, number one, I put myself in a position to have a mentors. And then I check myself. Like, how do am I taking action on what I've already been told? Like, do I need to ask them this question, or can I just read their book? Or could I listen to that episode of their podcast or when they were on your podcast? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, because then Because if I haven't already done what you've already said to do, then like I don't really have any business asking about step 2 if I haven't completed step 1.
It's so funny, and that is such a good point. Being a good mentee is payment enough for the mentor.
Yeah, dude. Because like for me, anybody I've ever mentored in anything, like when they're a great, like a good or especially a great mentee, I'm usually like, you want to hang out?
You're right.
Like, can we hang out together? Can
Yeah.
we spend more time together?
Yeah.
You know, I think of the people on my team that are great mentees. I'm usually bugging them to come spend time with me. Same thing outside of this, you know, like outside of my team, just in other parts of the world, of my life, my world it's normally I found the mentor wants to be around that. Cause like there's a freshness in that, right? There's like this, I think there's a lot there. It's not like this always works out that way, but I do think if you're a great mentee, you're actually giving as much to that mentor as they're giving to you. It's a total give take relationship that balances out perfectly. And what I found is over time, a lot of people that were like my mentors are actually just like really good friends now.
Yeah.
But they're still my mentors.
Right.
They're just also really my friend. And those situations have always been because I was a good mentee.
It's so funny, man. It's so true. And it's, you know, as looking at both sides of it, as being a mentee, I mean, you know, when I came to North & Co, part of my deal was Brian was like, hey man, I want to show the world that we can take a $10 million a year agent and turn him into a $30 million a year agent. Like, let's go. Like, I'm going to work with you. I'm going to coach you, blah, 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 blah. And we continued to level up and succeed. And he continued to abide by that agreement and still does to this day.
But if you weren't holding up your end of the bargain,
dude, it would have evaporated. And that's
no
and
chance.
And he's even said it. He's like, dude, you know, the thing is, when we get off the call, the next call we have, you've done the stuff we talked about.
You're like a dog on a bone.
Right?
Yeah. Like that's it.
Well, and if I've got this access to these powerful, strong, smart people that are willing to exchange information, dude, I'm going to take it and I'm going to run with it. And if I hit a dead end, if you and I talk about something and I'm like, Kevin, we talked about the thing and I tried it and it just didn't work. Like, what else you got? Or like, what can I tweak? Like, I'm not just going to be like, tried it and didn't work. It's like, hey, why didn't it? What can we break apart? What else can we put into it? And then on the flip side, being in positions of being a mentor, to your point, it's like the mentor is getting as much from the mentee as the mentee is getting. There have been times when I've been whiteboarding with people and going through stuff that I've done or da-da-da-da, and I'll just like stop and be like, whoa, what you just said right there, like that changes the way I look at it. Or writing this out on the board for the 17th time, I'm never going to write it like this again.
Yeah.
Right? I think hearing yourself speak and put it together and whatever, it's practice, it's honing it. It's taking your own data that you've used for years and years and applying your brain, applying new lessons to it and you learning new things and unpacking it and rebuilding it. And only when you're really deeply engaged in teaching someone the stuff do you teach yourself or you hear them say something and all of a sudden it changes dynamic and it's like the lightning bolt.
Dude, half the reason I continue to teach whenever I can is because how much I get out of it. Just being honest, like, because if you're going to stand up in front of a room or in front of a camera, whatever that looks like, and teach something, A, you better know it, and B, you better be doing that.
Yeah.
Like you better, like in my opinion anyways, something also I value is people that teach from knowing, not from knowing about.
Right.
Like I don't care if you're telling me about something that you think that you can't, like if you don't have a real estate license, you're trying to tell me how to sell real estate, like I'm probably not going to listen to you, right?
Right.
Or I'm going to take it with a grain of salt,
right.
and I'm going to keep it a little bit further away. So if you're going to go teach, well, if I'm going to go teach, it forces me to get better about what it is I'm teaching,
right,
or whatever it is I'm doing. And I think that's one of the big benefits of that.
That's so smart because when you're preparing to go teach or you're synthesizing your thoughts, you're putting them together, you're organizing them, you're reorganizing them. And dude, I love that. It's like, you were talking about, the person that is kind of theorized about the stuff as opposed to actually doing it. It's like, you can listen to business professors, MBA professors, but if all they've been is in academia, like I'd rather go listen to an entrepreneur. I don't care if they graduated from high school.
Yeah. There's some value in it, but again, it's about how much weight do we assign the value? It's been a while since I read Principles by by Ray Dalio, but one of the things he talks about is like everyone actually has an opinion, but it's weighted, and the expert has the most weight given to their answer or response, right? So like I'm always thinking about that, like, okay, just because someone's on stage right now and they're saying something, I need to figure out how I weight that opinion or that thing that they're presenting to me, because it's not 100% at their word. Not to say I don't believe them. It's just like they may not be qualified to be teaching me the thing that they're teaching.
Right.
And that's okay if they have a good idea. Maybe it is an amazing idea, but they don't actually know that. And so I always value people that teach from a place of do it like me, or I've done it like this, as opposed to I think it would work like this. Unless you but if you're going to be honest up front and say, I think it would work like this, that's cool. Yeah. Tell me, let's disclose that up front.
Right.
But let's not act like something's a fact, it's one of my things I just don't love about most facilitators or teachers is like, especially nowadays, like everything has got to be so prescriptive because that's what people want. People don't want to think. They want an answer given to them. And I'm like, no, I want to have to think for myself. I actually want to think. And therefore, I don't want you to tell me something is black and white. I want you to tell me your experience and tell me what your theory was on it. And then let's figure it out.
Right. Like build the scaffolding and then let me build what's in there.
Yeah.
I think that's super smart. It's interesting to think, a guy that's as studied and read and, been to, events and speakers and whatever, to have that thought process where you're kind of running them through the weighting scales. You're listening to them. It's like, how much weight should I be giving to them? Blah, blah, blah. And it's probably, my guess is, I may be putting words in your mouth or ideas in your head, but my guess is probably when you're on stage, you're probably thinking the same thing. Like, all right, how much do I believe what I'm about to say? Should I say it? Running it through your own weighted, algorithm.
Number one, I have to think about the same things, which is, am I saying something that I've done and I'm speaking from experience, or am I talking about an idea that I haven't actually executed on myself? Because I'm going to disclose that. I'd rather just disclose that up front, right? And it's, great if I sound smart. I don't care if I don't sound smart though, right? And I think it's the thing of like having been on stage, if you will, as well as listening to other people on stage and then like knowing the truth.
Right.
It's just like not everybody knows all the other moving parts. Like it's really easy in real estate because we see people get on stage. We get on stage for a super vanity metric, right? That's what gets you on stage in real estate, on stage, if you will, in front of your peers, and not the real depth stuff that actually matters at the end of the day. And so, but most people don't see through that, and they don't know how to discern that for themselves because they're just, again, they're weighting it at 100%. Someone says something, it must be true. This guy's killing it, or she's killing it, she's selling a ton of houses, doing this way or that way. Like, but there's always more to the story, and you can't get that on a 30-minute, half an hour, 15-minute interview from stage. You can't. And so you got to worry about that.
Well, and it's so interesting because, putting the participant in the crowd hat on, that's where a lot of agents will fail too. And I suspect where a lot of people that go to these seminars will fail is like, to your point, it's prescriptive. Like these 10 steps to success, and they'll write them down and they'll go, you'll either have the person that goes, I'm going to do all 10 or I'm going to do it today. And then they break themselves because they can't do all 10.
Can't do all 10.
Yeah. Or you'll get the person that goes, I'm gonna do all 10 for sure. And then they won't do any of it.
Yep.
But it's like,
But you know who wins is the person that does one.
Yep.
And then eventually they get around to number two, and eventually they get around to number three. It's like the saying, like success is sequential, not simultaneous. You can't do all 10 things at once. If you haven't been doing any of these 10 things, you're not going to wake up tomorrow and do all 10 things. You could definitely do one though. And then once that's automatic, you could add the second thing. And once you've done that enough, and then it's automatic, you can add the third thing.
Yep.
And so then it's sequential. That's not sexy though, because that might take you 2 years,
right,
or 3 years, or 5 years to really nail all 10 of those things.
Long game.
100%.
Which doesn't exist. And I mean, people come in real estate because they want it right now.
Yeah.
They don't understand that it's long game. I was teaching a class in North & Co about marketing and like, well, what I do from a marketing standpoint. And at one point, I could see people were like, I can't do this. You could see the look on the face. And I was like, listen, like, you guys need to understand, this is over 10 years.
Yeah.
Right? I didn't do all this at once. It was like, I did the one thing. And I test and measure too. I'll do it and 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 I'll do it. And I'll be like, not working. Boom. Put a bullet in it right when I realize it's not working.
Yeah.
Pivot and move. Or I do it. And it's automatic. And it's working. And then it's like, okay, step 2, what else can we do?
Yeah.
And then that thing's automatic and working. And now you have this layer. It's like stair steps, just one after the other, after the other, after the other. And pretty soon you're a flight up and you're like, dude, I'm on the next floor. I didn't even realize it.
Yeah.
But, people will chomp off too much, or they'll be nodding at you. Yeah, that sounds great. I'm going to do it. And then they don't. And I think taking that first step in anything, the first realization that like, hey, I need to change things up. Maybe I should start doing yoga, or maybe I should not engage with social media in the morning, or maybe I should like actually doing it. I've got a saying, and I say it to my 10-year-old more than anyone. The difference between dreamers and doers is action.
Yeah.
It's just action. You can dream about something all you want. And actually this podcast was one of those things. And it was an example that I used for her. I was like, you remember how I said I was going to start a podcast? She's like, yeah. I'm like, I'm shooting my podcast today. She's like, you just talked about that a couple of weeks ago. Right. I took action. I dreamt it. I wanted to do it, and I took the action. Otherwise, it's just going to remain a dream. And people are it's like the fear of that first step, I think it gets in people's ways and trips them up so much. Like, I'm just afraid. I don't know what's around that corner. Whereas guys like me and you are like, dude, what's around that corner?
Yeah.
I'm going to take the step. Like, okay, I may break my ankle. I may pop a toe. The water may be too hot. I may have to pull out, whatever, or it may be perfect.
Could be amazing.
It could be amazing. But like just having that curiosity and that adventure and wanting to continue the journey and go see what's around the next bend, see what the next challenge is, see what's over the hill, I think is fun, engaging, and exciting.
Yeah.
What's next? What's the next thing for you?
Oh man, complete transparency. I don't know. Like I've really been thinking about that, taking a lot of time off this summer, more time off than I ever have, the majority of June and July.
Nice, good.
And just sort of relaxing. The business is good. It could always be better.
Right.
I'm really trying to figure out like, hey, what is the next evolution? What's the next thing I add on? Because I'm not taking anything away from what we're doing. It's continuing to run. The thing I've concentrated on the most in the last couple of years has been investing in more real estate. So kind of bringing in the investment piece to our business, investing more in myself as a person and in my well-being for the long run. And just trying to figure out like, this is like kind of a crude business like term for it, but like what is my personal highest and best use in an organization,
right.
whether that's in the way I show up to our real estate team, our investment business, our EXP recruiting business, our education, my podcast, or something that I haven't even thought of yet. Right. So right now I'm just working to be as open as possible to finding out what the next step is.
Dude, I love it. And I think that I always say that when, to your point, being open, right? I always say that when I force myself into something, when I jam it in, like when I'm really like kicking the door in and trying
to make it not work.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's absolute fail. And like, when I get antsy or I get, restless and I try to start wedging something in, I go, nope. And I just sit and I create space.
Yeah.
And I allow things to flow to me. And so you saying, I'm going to take some time. I'm going to take time off this, or I'm just going to kind of see what happens. That freaks a lot of people out because the monkey brain has got to constantly be turning on something. But that openness and that void that you create, it will get filled, and it gets filled with what you allow in it, which should only be good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt.
Oh, that's fun, man. Well, hey, listen, we've cruised. This is
awesome.
As always. We
could keep going.
We could go for hours and hours, and hopefully we'll grab happy hour soon and be able to do it again. But Kevin, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Dude, my pleasure. Thanks for letting me be here, and it's fun.
Thanks, dude.